3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome to the second review of the evening. Up here is Fear Effect Sedna. So yeah,
So this game is kind of a long time coming.
About 2 decades, depending on how you want to measure it. Like, about 2 years in like actual terms. I think we did the Kickstarter coverage 2 years ago or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
It was certainly back in the Talk Shoe days. That I do remember. But we've covered the games a few more. We've actually covered the game a few more times recently. Like we did an interview with Sushi about 6 months ago, and we talked to our good friend Phil Elliott, head of the Square Enix Collective. Not last week, 2 weeks ago. Like, so in absolute terms, Fear Effect Sedna here has received quite a lot of coverage. Like, part of the reason is Fear Effect was one of my favorite survival horror franchises back in the day. And I was rather excited at the prospect of getting a new one. And I do remain excited at the prospect of, well, Fear Effect reimagined. Because, certain concerns have always been attached to Fear Effect Sedna here. Because, going back, like, if you've missed all of our coverage and you don't know what Fear Effect Sedna is, yeah, it's a new installment in the Fear Effect series, but it's not really a new Fear Effect game as you knew it in the past. Like,
it's a continuation of the story and the characters, but the gameplay style here is very far from survival horror.
Yeah, the gameplay style is this mushy hybrid of strategy game and third-person isometric shooter. Like, also you've got a sprinkling of stealth in the mix. Like, and that's where a lot of problems arise. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, it's been a while, but I'm recalling like the initial pitch was basically to make this game like, well, one of the new Shadowrun games. Like, and you can still see the vestige in that in the tactical mode. But,
I had a hard time getting the way the tactical mode basically works, because when you control more than one person, normally you control basically one at a time and the other one either follows you or stays in place.
Right.
There's a thing you set it to tactical pause, then you basically do one character's action, switch to the other character, do their action, and then execute. Meaning, and then they both do the things that they did at the same time. But I was never really, and allegedly you can do like combo moves with their special skills, but I never managed to pull that off.
Like, and it's not a skill set you really need. Like, you can go through the entire game just using like the gun play and the stealth. I will say there are a few segments where you really need to be good with your stealth, or at least decent. That was usually
and there is a stealth kill mechanic where when you're in stealth mode, you move slower and you can see people's vision cones. Thankfully, this game still operates under peripheral vision. What is that logic?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you get up close to someone, you can stealth kill them, and if you can like hide and take cover when you're being shot at. But generally, a lot of the time, you just want to be shooting back.
And yeah, this all goes back to, well, the compromises that had to be made to get Fear Effect Sedna funded, because the test results towards the more tactical RPG or strategy, those didn't play well.
Yeah.
You know, so they moved the game in a more action-oriented development so they could make it more plottable for consoles. Because they kind of needed like people who owned a PlayStation in order to make this game a reality.
And this game is in fact on, I think, all of the major consoles, including the Switch.
Yes, yes, it is. Like, I think the if I'm trying to recall back to the interview we did with Tej, but the thing of it is, I'm trying to remember if we ever got any solid specs on the differences between the Switch versus the other platforms. I don't think there's too much. Like, it'd be the usual, you know, lower resolution, maybe lower frame rate kind of deal. Like, it's like Digital Foundry hasn't done any sort of comparisons or anything that way. Like, but you know, it doesn't seem to be too much of a compromise, which is not a surprise because most of this game isn't too taxing. Although I was having some problems with it, mostly with the cutscenes. Sometimes they would crash, sometimes they would repeat. Like,
yeah, sometimes it was a little bit weird. I mostly had like really weird loading times.
Yeah, sometimes they would skip a bit. Like, I don't know, it was odd, and it was never consistent about it either. Like, maybe that was an optimization issue. When it comes to PC gaming, it's like it could be any number of problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, but yeah, in general, the game ran perfectly. You know, like I said, you know, if you look at the game, it's not too taxing of a genre in general. Like, but yeah, the whole direction that Fear Effect Sedna took in terms of its gameplay mechanics has always been a source of contention because, well, this is kind of what happens when you pull away from what made a franchise a franchise. You know,
Yeah.
because it's weird calling this Fear Effect 3 or 4 or however the timeline works.
Yeah,
you know?
it's not because, and the reason why it's like that is because if you know anything about Fear Effect, there was a third game that was basically completed but never released. That is still canon between Fear Effect 2 and this.
Yeah, the thing of it is, there's only one major thing that happened that's of any importance, and that's Hana got free of the triads. Everything else was junked. And that's actually kind of important because knowing what we do about Inferno, the relationship apparatus got reset basically. So
yeah, apparently, I think in Inferno there was something about like most of the playable characters were hooking up at some point.
Basically, from what I've read, like everybody, like at the very least, we were having a three-way romance, which is even rarer in games than the previous landmark of Fear Effect, and that's I'm not sure if it's the I don't think they're the first lesbian couple, but they're like the first, you know, mainstream gaming lesbian couple. Like, you know, it was kind of, unfortunately, this game was released in the year 2000, and yeah, the rationale for doing that was not for any sort of actual progression, but for titillation. It's like, remember, this is the game series that still hasn't lived down those Fear Effect Retro Helix ads. The ones that had taglines, and I shit you not, these are the real taglines. It's no wonder this game has 12 climaxes. Or, this game puts the ass in Assassin. Swear to God, that's one of the fucking taglines. So, someone got paid money for that.
Indeed.
I'm sorry. It's so cheesy.
It is.
You know, and why there are why it's so important is because the developers, told us that, you know, they didn't want to repeat the mistakes of Retro Helix and, the earlier games by over sexualizing stuff. You know, and at the same time, they didn't want, the people involved here didn't create the relationship, but they didn't want to discard the relationship either. So
yeah, Hana and Rain are still a thing, but it's less of a,
yeah,
you know,
it's less of a sexy time thing, and they're more of an actual couple. Like
Right.
that was there in Retro Helix, but here, like the difference. Here's what the difference is between 2000 and 2018. Those two are actually allowed to be tender and affectionate overtly. Like, they do things that couples do, like kiss and comfort each other, and you know, so, and other such romantic gestures. Those weren't like those were still there, but those were on a much more subtextual level in Retro Helix. Now, it's kind of one of the measures of progress, making the what was once, say, unusual mundane. And this isn't getting off track because this is a part of the game. That, this is actually a big
there's a
part.
decent amount of interpersonal stuff in the cutscenes and story and those things.
And that shit is where this game is most like Fear Effect. All of the interpersonal relationships and the story, and we're dealing with a different lore here, but yeah, all of that shit feels like a Fear Effect title.
Because the first two games were more Japanese and Chinese, and this one is gets into some Inuit stuff.
Yeah, well, no, the first two games were about Chinese mythos.
China, right?
No Japanese. Like, the game doesn't go to Tokyo or anything like that. Those two are taking place in Hong Kong and China, and like rural mainland China. Here, yeah, we're ditching all that for the most part. Yeah, we're not dealing with any mythos stuff, but like shit from the first Fear Effect game actually plays an important role in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't go into it without spoilers, but like a major, like one of the seemingly not major events, just kind of a so that happened.
Yeah, spoilers for somewhere within like the first 10 minutes of this game is dialogue to the effect of, I can't place it exactly, but is this about something that happened when you were in hell? I'm not sure. It might have been.
That's actually not what I'm talking about.
Oh.
I'm actually talking about something that happens at the end of the game and is tied directly to something that happens late game in Fear Effect 1.
Uh-huh.
I can't, like I said, I cannot talk about this without spoiling some shit, so I'm not going to do that. It's like that's one of those, you're gonna, like, as far as people who haven't played the old games, because I imagine there's a lot of people who haven't,
yeah, they're not super available, are they?
Not really, because they're only PlayStation 1 games. Like, they never got ported to any other system, and I think the only like PSN re-release was in Europe. So yeah,
which is kind of a shame because they are like fairly solid games. I mean, they're definitely of their age in terms of controls and stuff, but
right. So if there was, this is definitely a game series that's primed for a remake, just for the sake of accessibility, and given what we've been told on Fear Effect Reinvented, it's gonna be the game that people want. Like I said, I don't, I don't know how well Fear Effect Sedna is doing, but thankfully that doesn't matter. Like, getting more Fear Effect games isn't necessarily tied to this one, because it was always a hard sell.
Yeah, this game was at least partially to get people thinking about it again.
Yeah, like this game was a test to reignite the franchise, and thankfully that's happened. And Forever Entertainment, this German publisher, has stepped in to be a co-financier going forward. That is why that Fear Effect Reinvented didn't go to Kickstarter. They've already shown that there is interest, significant enough interest in the franchise for this other entity to invest in and preclude the need for more crowdfunding, which is always good, because going back to the well is sometimes an even more daunting task than the first time around. That one thing I specifically remember from the Kickstarter interviews was that, the reason why they went this isometric route is because Sushi themselves did not have the budget to do the
full cinematic
Yeah.
Survival horror type.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I mean, these are always characters where the survival horror was always kind of psychological in nature, rather than, I mean, these are characters where they are very good with guns and stuff.
Yes. And relating to that, this game does retain other elements that we haven't touched upon, but you may have already have seen in the video footage we've got going here. And that's puzzles.
I'm bad at puzzles.
Yeah, I was helping Petty Fan. Yeah, I was playing this mostly with a guide for the sake of speed. The puzzles are not usually super difficult, but they do require you paying attention to the environment in the stage, and sometimes going back and rechecking the environment in the stage for hints to the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this game had better puzzles than Task Cure.
Yes.
Again, this game had better everything than Task Cure.
Yeah, they're these. I mean, like the first bomb puzzle is a good example of it, where you have to do the right buttons or disconnect the right wires, and then there are signs throughout the facility that tell you which indicated, what's the word, symbol of sets of wires, which ones you have to disconnect from them. The weird thing from that one is that one of them requires you to do the third and then the first, rather than that's the only one where order seems to matter that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there are other such puzzles through the game that operate like that. You do have, if you're not using a guide, you do have to pay attention to the environment. It's actually one of the best parts of the game, because that does harken, in fact, I don't think the old Fear Effect titles did that.
Not a lot.
Yeah, it's
they had some inventory puzzles, but not a lot of super environmental stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, that's nice. It's got the sense of the classic puzzles, but a nice new twist. Inversely, one of the elements that feels the least well implemented is the actual fear effect. And that is
in the other games, it was almost like a pseudo amnesia sanity meter thing, although not so much. In this one, it's just as you take damage, you deal more damage, but also take more damage.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
again, they were talking about doing more with this, but your character's life bars aren't long enough for that to be really a super useful thing.
More to the point, it's kind of it's kind of baked into other parts of the design here. The gunplay isn't terribly good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not that it's unusable so much as it's just it kind of encourages spray and pray because you pretty much auto target.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the worst is bosses. Like the
Oh
boss,
God.
yeah, the bosses become absolute bullet sponges.
Also, each character does have a special weapon, but you like have to switch to the special weapon separately every time you want to use it.
Right. Like the special weapons do help with the bosses, but it's
Yeah.
still you're gonna be shooting um a lot.
Yeah.
And it's more tedious than challenging a lot of the time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, some of the end bosses there, yeah, I'm like, were just dull.
Yeah.
That was unfortunate. And I know that Sushi knew that um, this was the case because there was design compensation here, and that is medkits. There are a lot of medkits in this.
Yeah.
Which
Like,
is good because if you're not good at the game, you'll be taking a lot of damage, and you can't take much damage at once. I did actually have Hana go down in a mission, and
mhm.
Axel was able to revive her with a med kit, which was useful.
Okay. That's actually a good segue because I actually want to talk about the new character, Axel.
Yeah, Axel's a guy. He's
And
French or something.
that's that actually kind of sums up my problem with him. You know, he's a
Yeah.
new character, but he's just a guy who shows up.
Yeah, all of these other characters have like established history with each other and stuff.
Yeah.
He it's part of his backstory that he knows Hana, but
That's it. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's not a new love interest. He's not. I was thinking that he was going to be a family member, like a cousin or a brother, a half brother, something like that. Something there's a there's a bond that we are told exists, but we are never shown.
yeah,
Like,
it's
they-
like it's like the he's a friend from work thing, except you've never seen them before.
yeah, it's I'll be honest, it's bad storytelling right here. Like this is some cardinal rule you told, but you didn't show stuff here.
They stuck him in there, and that's it.
And yeah, that kind of makes sense to me because I was, Axel's this new character, but they weren't hyping him up or anything. Contrast with like Rain coming in with Retro Helix, they hyped the shit out of her. Granted, there were reasons for that, but she was a bit large focus of that game. Axel, yeah, it's like he's just kind of there, and yeah, you're just kind of the crew because okay, you've got some vested parallel interests here. Riveting, right? Oh, like sorry.
Sorry, petty fans being bad at games.
Yeah, this is not my forte.
Yeah, and this segment was a little bit challenging for me. It's kind of early in the game, so
Yeah.
it's the first time you really have to deal with stealth takedowns in order
Mm-hmm.
with the obvious consequence of being, oh shit, now there are 3 guys shooting at me and I only have 2 guns. Or 1 gun.
Right.
One gun and a finite health pool.
You do also have a taser, remember?
I'm like, stealthing wasn't that hard. At least not in this.
Sometimes, I mean, they do show you view cones really clearly, but sometimes they don't interact with scenery in the way you'd expect. Like there are things that you think you'd be able to hide behind that you can't.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
take it these like ceiling things.
Yeah, they're skylights.
The skylights. I thought I could hide behind that in one of my first times I died. Nope.
Yeah, so did I.
Same.
Oops.
But apparently these like air conditioner units you can totally hide behind.
Well, they are
Yeah.
like twice the height.
You can have behind
you know what
walls,
I
but-
mean.
So your goal is the white door, but there is a thingy down the stairs.
I like thingies.
Hmm.
Yeah, this game has collectible little I forget what they're called. They're
Totems.
like little statuettes that unlock.
Hooray,
Every so
loot.
many of them, you unlock new art in the gallery.
Oh, I can
Right.
loot
Yeah,
these
the
more.
collectible du jour is the secret totems. I think I got about 20 of those. Like, they don't do much. They unlock some concept art. There's probably an achievement for getting all of them. Like,
Mhm.
it's like it's a nice little reward, but it's nothing. Like, I wouldn't recommend going out of your way to get them. The soundtrack. I rather like I actually thought the soundtrack was one of the strongest parts of this.
Yeah, I
It
had it on.
was.
I had it on fairly quiet, but when I was listening to it, I did like it.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's it really fits the cyberpunk mood of the franchise, and
Yeah, this is a somewhat futuristic. It's easy to forget in some of the environments, but they have like things like holographic PDAs and stuff.
I mean, to put it in perspective, this is actually a soundtrack I would listen to outside the confines of the game. Background work, sure, but that is better than other soundtracks I could speak on. Yeah. On the other hand, one of the biggest disappointments was the environments. Too much bland gray factory area thing. Honestly, like pretty much every area looks like every other area,
Yeah.
no matter where you are. Like, I think the area with the most diversity was like France and the upscale penthouse, and that's just because there were some color flourishes there. Yeah. You know, if they go with this style with a future game, and I will say that they do tease something for the future.
Which is not super shocking because this was clearly designed as a franchise reinvigorator.
Right.
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, some actual diversity in the levels is needed. It's not unlike some other reviewers, it's not the biggest sticking point with me, but it was a sticking point because I honestly lost track of where I was more than once. Like, okay, are we still in Hong Kong? Are we in Paris? Are we in Greenland now? Yeah. So the new mythos, kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if Inuit is the correct generic term, but the northern tribes mythology is something you don't see a lot of in fiction and stuff, and they have some cool stuff.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. That being said, I would have liked to have seen more of that. Like,
So have I.
and that's another, if this game had a bigger budget, they probably would have, like, the whole library museum area probably would have been filled with a lot of more flavor text, actual background mythos of the Greenland Inuit people. Because,
Mhm.
You do learn a thing or two, who Sedna is. That's the Inuit god of the sea.
I already knew that from summoning her in Shin Megami Tensei.
Now, and a few other deities. I won't get into it because once again, that's that probably be venturing into spoiler territory.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, an interesting use of the mythos, but also feels like sort of a missed opportunity there.
It
I'm going to
does.
suggest Wendigo show up at some point.
Actually, I think
Wendigo is a different mythology.
Yeah, I think that's Canada or Alaska.
I mean, it's related, but not exactly the same.
I get the joke he's going for, and that's all that matters.
Right.
Well, then I
but-
apologize for missing the joke.
Watch more
Anyway.
Scary Game Squad.
I'm like, that's probably not a thing that's going to happen. Anyway, so price. So Fear Effect Sedna clocks in at about $20.
This game is worth $20,
Mm.
especially way
Mhm.
more than Past Cure is worth $30.
I'm like, yeah. That being said, it is on sale on Steam right now, so you can pick it up for $17.99. Like, once again, yeah, the $15, $20 mark is a good price range. And if you want the soundtrack, it looks like it's available in bundle, or is it's? Let me see what's the upgrade here. Okay, yeah, the upgrade is $28.98 for some reason. Bit of an odd title. I'm like, that's where you get the OST. Like,
Yeah, some of the things that end in 98 usually means it's two things that end in 99 combined.
right. Like, I'm like, I hesitate to say the soundtrack is worth $10. Maybe $5.
It's like $9.
Yeah,
It's currently also on sale, so
yeah, you know what I mean. Like, it's hard for me to recommend the collector's edition. Like, but yeah, the base game, well enough. Provided you know, you're not someone who's already made a decision.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you're
Which,
looking
let's be
for
honest,
original Fear Effect, wait for Reimagined.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Although I will note that this game has been getting some savage reviews, like, and I will say buyer beware on the gunplay. Like,
Mhm.
you know, I think that might be the make or break.
Pretty much.
More than anything else. All right. Any last things to say about Fear Effect Sedna?
I'm bad at the game.
I know.
It
well,
had
you're
its-
starting from the beginning. You haven't really gotten used to it yet. So.
Yeah, I'm still bad.
Yeah, it had its frustrating moments, but I overall enjoyed it. And as Adam's been saying, buyer beware on the gunplay part. If you don't like frustration,
Mhm.
All right then. So I think that'll about conclude our review of Fear Effect Sedna. Be sure to tune in not too long from now. I just gotta reset everything, and we'll be talking about a game called WireNet. Like, it's a really simple game, so it was easy to fit this week. So until then, good gaming and such.